Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to report a trade.
We have a trade to announce.
Tails.
Let's go.
How about this trade that just went down?
Wow.
Okay, so the rumor's true. Okay, we just traded you. Okay, we traded you to the Indianapolis Colts. All right. So, you okay?
Nah, I'm gonna call my grandmother.
You can call your grandmother? Okay, this hasn't hit the papers or anything like that. Okay, well, why don't we do a little business first, okay? Before you call grandma, okay?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Dynasty Trade Show. And if you can't tell by the guy who's sitting in here with us, this is going to be phenomenal. One of the best in the entire industry, and I don't say that lightly. He is one of the reasons Adam and I have started doing content and where we are now. And he hasn't talked to us about it one bit until right now we get him on the show, right? This is all just watching him. But Nate Liss of DynastyRankings.com is joining the Dynasty Trade Show. So you guys better fucking enjoy it because Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Nate was in the given mood and agreed to come on. How are you doing, Nate?
Dude, I'm good, man. That was a great intro. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. No, man, we've talked a little bit kind of off air, about getting together, doing the show. I was excited to come on here, man. Again, like as somebody who obviously started at the very bottom, grinding content, like when I see two guys like you doing what you're doing, working as hard as you are, surrounded by good people, making good content. You guys are a great part of the community, man. I love to jump on a show with you and just kind of shoot the breeze. And you guys continue to make good stuff. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely,
thanks so much
man.
for that, Nate. Adam, I can't forget you, buddy, right?
It's all right, man. I'm happily the third wheel on this thing.
Listen, if the people don't know, Adam has set this up for a few weeks now. He has set it up. Like, don't worry, Mike. I got a special surprise for you. It's Christmas. Scheduling didn't work out for the what. He's like, I'll get you next week. We got a special guest. I ain't going to tell you who it is. And this sumbitch actually kept it from me. So as soon as I pop into the Ecamm link tonight, and I'm like, oh, who's the guy coming on? Like, I'm thinking like Matty Kiwoom, right? That's our boy. We've had him on some shows before. I'm like, I always love hanging out with Matty. And then Nate's face appears. Holy shit, Adam. You stopped my heart for a minute, buddy. But other than that, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's funny because you didn't know, and I had to keep reminding myself you didn't know because we're getting ready. Like I'm rushing down here as normal. I'm late, so I'm like, all right, let's get this stream going. And Mike's like, man, work sucks. Like today's awful. Like he's got this kind of shitty mood. And then like, boom, look, you see that smile? He's all excited. So we're gonna have a good show.
Love it.
The Dynasty Trade Show with the Nate Liss. We're looking forward to getting some of these trades reviewed. And Nate, honestly, like the way you break down trades has been something, at least in our process, that we kind of, Ray, yourself, like the process that you do with breaking down trades. So I'm excited to get you on the trade show, man, honestly.
Let's do it, man. No, I watched a bunch of your different content. I caught the one with Scott. I thought that was really cool, man. Scott's very nuanced, He's definitely got his own philosophy. Everything is very much in a bucket. I like that style. I can be a little more fluid at times, I think. I think maybe there's some rigidness to how he plays, which I think is dope because it's a very successful way to play. I can be a bit of a loose cannon, so I'm looking forward to these trades, see what we can come up with here. So it'll be fun. Absolutely.
And, speaking of Christmas, Nate, let's see what Mike did because we always start the show off with one of our own trades. So let's see who was in the given mood this year. Nate, so what we're looking at here is Mike is receiving Ezekiel Elliott and Michael Gallup. He's sending away the king. Now what's funny is McNutted has the king, right? He's got the crown, the tear down king in his thing, but he's sending away the king. This is a shit league, Nate. So I don't know if you know, we are heavy best ball here. So this is a best ball league where Mike's getting this. So I'm just gonna kick it off with Nate. Like, what are your thoughts in best ball going to Zeke and Gallup here?
I mean, obviously you got two guys that do bring upside on any given week in this trade. I mean, look, so Derrick Henry, I'm concerned with Henry. I'm on the fence, I should say. I'm 50-50. Like, we've never seen a guy at this age play productively week to week like Derrick Henry has. But the reality is at some point the wheels are going to fall off. But with that being said, in the same breath, Ezekiel Elliott is also pushing, mid-age 27, has looked a bit washed from time to time, but the contract is so heavy in his favor right now. I think that they can't get rid of him till at least after 2023. And we don't know what they're going to do with Tony Pollard. I think you guys have probably talked about Pollard here in the past. Pollard's supposed to be a free agent this year. I really don't know what Dallas's plans are with him. You would imagine they would try to bring him back, but I don't even know that Pollard necessarily wants to come back. He may want a full-time role somewhere. So with this trade and also being a fan of Michael Gallup, I would probably lean on the Ezekiel Elliott side of this deal, and that has a lot to do with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, Mike, you got the Nate Liss approval. So like, walk us through why you made the deal and what it looked like.
So this was a deal specifically for championship week, right? Derrick Henry wasn't going to play. I'm in the finals. I want the money. I want the paper.
Yeah,
I tried. I had to shoot my shot, right? In best ball, I can't have a guy who's going to score 0, right? Yeah. There's no trade deadline in this league. I just wanted to throw it out there, right? See what I could get back for a guy who's going to be a 0 in championship week for me, and see if I can get a couple players who maybe make my lineup and help me win the title. Now, I mean, this is a past tense that we're talking about it, but future tense, neither Michael Gallup nor Ezekiel Elliott made my lineup in championship week. Now, the title's not lost. It's still kind of up in the air. I got a 2-point lead. Obviously, with the events that happened on Monday night with Damar Hamlin, we don't know if that game's getting rescheduled. We haven't worked it out. The game is so damn close that we can't even split the pot. Like, he asked me about it, and I'm like, I felt pretty good going into Monday night. Like, I had Joe Burrow still left to go. You know, I had a bunch of guys who could still make my lineup and in a small lead already. So it remains to be seen whether this was a pertinent move, if I actually secure a bag with this one. But long term, man, it's hard for me to do. Nate kind of touched on it, the Derrick Henry thing. We've never seen it. I don't want to discount the guy. He could come out and rush for 1,400, 1,500 yards next year, and I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest. Like, he's a different kind of guy. Zeke, I think we know what Zeke is at this time. Michael Gallup, you kind of like what you saw coming on later in the season, coming back from that ACL, but I mean, it's still the number 2 option, right? He's never going to be a number 1. Do they do something else? Do they bring in another guy, a legitimate weapon in the draft or free agency or whatever they do? So I don't know. I was kind of on the fence about it, but not going to lie to you, this move is just made for championship week, right? Trying to get that paper. That's all I was doing, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, well, it makes sense too, right? You're going to go try to get Zeke. And I think, like, what you guys both touched on is interesting about Ezekiel Elliott, because now he's pretty much in this discounted range where, like, the cost of, like, if you're going to sell Zeke on a contender, like, it's not going to make sense. And when you look at what he did this year, Mike, I think the way they're using Pollard and Zeke now, how that looks moving forward, we don't know, because they may not both be back, but they were using a very good role, and Zeke quietly was like RB1 in a lot of these weeks. He was a top 12, top 10, top 8 running back.
Yep.
So it's like that is the crusty land running back that I want, where the value's shit, the name's starting to become shit, but the production's actually quietly good, especially in best ball. So, like, I like the pivot, and, you know, Michael Gallup's been disappointing, but I think it's still a talented player coming off an injury that could have a resurgence. And ultimately in best ball, you want a bunch of these, you know, wide receiver types in that, you know, 13, 14 round in a startup. So, like, I think given the scenario, like, there's an injured player and this is for the playoffs, it's an easy win for you, because I think on just the surface, it's close.
Man, I can't believe you guys are gassing me up on the first trade.
No, it's well, here's the thing. Yeah, it's like I love Henry, but again, the wheels will eventually fall off of Derrick Henry, and we've seen some injuries come into play here of late. And then again, Ezekiel Elliott, like you just touched on there, 7 of his last 9 games was a top 15 finish. And that's in a divided backfield. Again, we don't know what it looks like next year. Everybody wants to say that Zeke is washed, right? Everybody wants to jump on that bandwagon. And a great point that you just brought up was that he's age 27. His name brand's not as good as it used to be. And this is my contention. I would say that going into next year is one of the best years for contenders, because we have like 7 or 8 running backs that are hitting that age 27, age 28 year, from, you know, Aaron Jones to Austin Eckler to, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara. All these dudes are productive players that you can get for a lot cheaper than you ever could in the past, and they still carry that production capability. So with the variance at the running back position, again, I love Derrick Henry, but in this trade, best ball, Gallup has upside. Zeke kind of pushed with Derrick Henry for quite a bit there, so I don't hate it.
Yeah, and I think that last point you made is so key because especially with the dynasty clock, right? We're getting ready to go to pretty soon the 23 running backs, all the youth. And for months, all that age is going to just be devalued by a lot of true dynasty degenerates. So I think it's a great buy window too. All right, Mike, enough of the bullshit us telling you how great your trade was. All right, let's get over. Interestingly, so listen, T-Rock, we're going to shout out to T-Rock. I didn't even pool the trades today. I was running late. I'm like, T-Rock, this is your show, man. You got to pool the trades. Greatly, the second trade here is Blitzing Buzzard, who we know through Nate Liss. Let's go.
No way.
We got Blitzing Buzzard is getting the 106 for George Pickens. I got a lot of thoughts, but I'm going to start with Nate and then go to Mike. What are your thoughts here? The 23 class and George Pickens.
Man, I mean, again, Deontay Johnson's not going anywhere. We look at this here. Deontay Johnson, 26.3% target share, 15% for George Pickens on the year. The question is he going to find some sort of jump in this offense? I don't know that the pass game is going to support what we're hoping from him. I think Pittsburgh, there's a lot of questions around it going forward. I would rather, not knowing definitively how 106 lands, and I'm assuming this is Superflex. Is that true?
So it is Superflex, but we're also looking at starting 8. So that makes it really shallow. It doesn't change a lot for me here, but
not really. Yeah, I would still take the 106. To be honest with you, I think the big plays that George Pickens brings to the table has really reeled a lot of people in. I'm not sure I'm really in true belief of him. We saw his numbers a lot higher earlier in the year. We saw him dip a little bit on a per game average towards the second half of the season, and Deontay Johnson's just a target vacuum in that offense. And as we've said a million times, targets are earned, right?
Oh yeah. Yes, and I want to get to Mike's point because I think he's got some good ones, but I got something to piggyback off of that too.
I'll say this. GP I love. Adam, you and I both big proponents of George Pickens in the post-draft NFL draft prospect. We talked about it. I trust what the Steelers do at wide receiver. Like when they draft a wide receiver, I pay attention. Call it lazy analysis or whatnot, but generally they do a fairly good job outside of, the James Washingtons of the world. But they generally do a good job identifying wide receiver talent. I love GP, and I love the fact that he hit from where he was post-NFL draft, where people had him, where he's a second-round pick, slipping into the mid-second in some of these drafts. Just absurd shit. Adam, I don't think he's done enough to make me feel like he warrants the 106 in a 23 class, Nate. Like, I'm in agreement. I just don't see it. I'd rather have the pick, right? The pick can't get hurt. The pick can't get suspended. The pick can't have a bad situation change. The pick is just a pick. It's going nothing but up in value, especially as we get more information on this 23 class and we get a better idea of where these players are going to go and how many quarterbacks are going to be involved in these Superflex rookie drafts. Like that could be QB3, maybe QB4 off the board. And in this case, GP's what, a top 24 wide receiver, maybe lower for some people.
Well, yeah, I'd
rather have the quarterback, man.
Let me transition into that because two points you guys made that I actually want to make here. So one, when Nate was talking about the running backs, right, and how these older crusty running backs are devalued and then they're probably buys, especially on contending teams. The flip side's true here, right, with George Pickens currently. Like Mike, he is wide receiver 19 on Keep Trade Cut. Right, and you think about that doesn't sound crazy.
Good Lord!
But outside of Jamison Williams, who I have no idea at this point how he's still a top 20 dynasty wide receiver, everybody else ahead of him should clearly be ahead of him. And I think with George Pickens, Mike, like this was the thing for me. It's a lot of it is about cost. It's been a roller coaster ride for George Pickens, right? Like the former 101 of the class before injuries and all that, and then he comes out and has a great catch in the bowl game, and that was it. And he gets drafted to the Steelers, and then the sentiment around that was George Pickens is going to have target competition. Chase Claypool, like they moved Chase Claypool, so you saw then George Pickens get a spike after making, like Nate talked about, highlight catches, like big moments, the one-handed grab, some of these electric catches he has. So he has this overinflated price, I think, in Dynasty now. And I've been, someone that wanted to buy a bunch and wanted to sell a bunch, but it's just the roller coaster ride of George Pickens. To me here, there's so many ways to look at 106. Like you said, Mike, you could get one of the top 4 quarterbacks. If you don't, though, like you're getting, and this is where I think it's clearly the 106 for me, you're getting your choice at worst of probably the wide receivers in this class. Like I'll take the top wide receiver in 23, my choice, landing spot, all that, ahead of George Pickens. Because Nate talked about this, like Kenny Pickett I think has shown signs of life, but also is not a sure thing at all. And they need a lot of offensive line help. Deontay Johnson, whether you like him or not in fantasy, commands insane target volume. So like when I think about upside, I just think that 106 has far more upside. And knowing that it can't get hurt, like you said, Mike, and that the 23 class is going to get so much hype for months, give me the 106 by a mile. Blitzing Buzzard. We're out here. It's too much stroking going on. We got Mike's great deal. We got Blitzer buzzing. we're out here just – these are great deals. But I don't know, Nate, did you have any other thoughts?
No, I mean, well, dude, think about this too. You got George Pickens has 7 red zone targets. Deontay Johnson has 0 touchdown receptions. Like, unless you – and George Pickens isn't being targeted that heavily. So if he's not being heavily targeted and they're never getting in the red zone, you're hoping for a jump from Kenny Pickett, and all of us have been crying our fucking eyes out for like 5 years with DJ Moore because he never had a quarterback. So it's like it's just so problematic. I don't personally want to invest in him. I had a big philosophy change this year with kind of how I construct my rosters. I love the allure of George Pickens. I love the upside, but we're banking on what if. There is nothing on paper here that I can lean into really that makes me go, yeah, this guy's the next fucking guy in the league. We're going to ride Kenny Pickett for a few years. Najee Harris, if he gets healthy and they're clearly leaning on him still. So the run game, targeting them, I think Pittsburgh's in the bottom 7 in the league in targets to the wide receiver position. So It's just, all in all, it's just a shit situation. And I'm just not super interested. Give me the future pick. I don't know what it is yet, what'll be there, but it'll certainly have more value.
I'm 100%. We're all on the same accord here. All right, so we have a 14. Well, now here we go. This is T-Rock, right? So it says 14-12 team. So 14-12
I love T-Rock.
So T-Rock, love you, buddy. I got to give you shit, but I don't know. 12 team Superflex PPR tight end premium. We got a 23 first being acquired for Michael Pittman. We don't have a number on this. There's no. This is generic. So let me ask you this, because I have a lot of thoughts on Michael Pittman. But Nate, like, where are you at with Michael Pittman currently? We just talked about quarterback purgatory with DJ Moore and George Pickens. I think this is a good segue.
Yeah. I think we know with the Colts, a change is coming. I don't know who might be a free agent option for them. I don't know if there's a trade option out there. But you look at Michael Pittman, and on an individual basis, again, where I said I don't have a way that I can lean into George Pickens, Michael Pittman has been top 3, you go to Player Profiler, as a total route winner for 2 consecutive years. This guy is absolutely dominant versus all forms of coverage. Even this year with really no help and super inaccurate quarterback plays, averaging, 13.5 fantasy points per game. Top 16 target share of 26.4%. So clearly they want to use the guy as the lead receiver in this offense. I mean, if you even had injuries at the running back position, the offensive line's been beat up. So where I can rationalize away a little bit in Pittsburgh, I also know that situation is what it's going to be, and we hope that Kenny Pickett gets better. On the other side of things, I know with the Colts, the quarterback situation could change, but this is a very good offense when it's all put together. And Pittman is the alpha dog. There's no question. There is no other guy that's beating him by 10% target share week in and week out. So at this point, I don't know what this 2023 first is. So I guess short of it being in the top, I would say 9 range, I would probably keep Pittman.
Yeah. I actually like that you made that distinction, because I was gonna put you on the spot, but you already got to it. I think a lot of it comes down to where this 23 first is slated, and at this point, like, we don't have a number yet, because this trade was probably days before the league was finalized, and actually a lot of these leagues aren't finalized yet because no one can agree to a split or they want to wait. But if this is a back end 23 first, I still think I'll take Pittman. I think what you said though, Nate, is for me anyway, is Like I like Pittman. I like the talent. I think there's a lot of reasons his commanding of targets, a lot of his play with every year we say that they got a quarterback upgrade. Like Jim Irsay and the Colts have constantly just tried to Band-Aid this quarterback thing, right? You had Phillip Rivers, you had Carson Wentz. Now you had, like, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback, but Michael Pittman I don't think has quite hit the allure like you talked about that we thought this year. My only concern would be, this is now a receiver going into year 4 and I think has a lot of traits that could translate, but when will that happen? And as we talk about with age, let's say it all clicks. A lot of times we see the receivers that click later, like the value never catches up because it's not George Pickens where he didn't even do shit, but George Pickens has this youth. So that's my only concern with Pittman based on where he's going to go.
I guess the argument about value though, like I need the fantasy points, right? And I don't know where Pickens is going to get those fantasy points in that scenario. The other side of things is I don't know what this 2023 first is. Even if I know it's mid or late, I don't know necessarily what player that ends up being, and I don't even know if that player fires at the NFL level either. So I know Pittman has been really good. I know that he's also been a product of a lot of problems at quarterback. There's a lot of free agent guys that are rumored. I mean, just to throw this out here to create hysteria, I've heard Lamar Jackson as a name that's come up a couple times as somebody that may not come back to Baltimore that the Colts could chase potentially. So in the blink of an eye, things can change. Now, with that being said, I don't even really love Lamar Jackson as a quarterback for a wide receiver. But what I'm saying is it could change in the blink of an eye, and all of a sudden where you're feeling like, oh, damn, that's kind of a nice situation. His value, as we were just talking about, could change. Now, production on the field is everything, though, because it's fantasy football. So I still really, really love Pittman, and that route win rate stuff for me was a big deal last year. I thought it was a breakout year for him this year, but clearly there's just been too many problems for him to break out.
And before I kick it to Mike, this is one of those things where I'm always amazed because, like, I assume that Michael Pittman carries more dynasty value than George Pickens from what we know. And, like, Nate, I'm looking at Keep Trade Cut right now.
Yeah.
Michael Pittman's 23 at wide receiver. George Pickens is 20. Like, it's not close 1-for-1 for those two players. Let me say that. I'm 100% with you there. I just mean that probably in more like in startup situations where you're taking him with the wide receiver push is where I'd be concerned with Pittman. But I'm with you. Like, he's still I would much rather have Pittman than a very back end 23 first.
This is the problem though. We've done this before. Like, I was looking at Keep Trade Cut. I was breaking all this shit down. Devonta Smith was the wide receiver 34 in September of this year. And even Jamison Williams. I mean, Jamison Williams is the wide receiver 16 on there, and he has 41 receiving yards on the year. Like,
don't get us started.
I'm just what I don't understand. Okay, I love Keep Trade Cut. I think it's an amazing tool, at least for the value of perception of what's going on in the world, right? But at the same time, fantasy gamers just love, they love a fucking clean pair of Jordans. Those Jordans could weigh 500 pounds, but if they're Jordans, they're like, fuck yes, I love them. And it's like, there's way too much of this shit goes into play. And again, I think with guys like Pittman, it's evident that the talent is there. It's proven at the NFL level. He just needs that little nudge. We just don't want to get burned DJ Moore style.
As a massive sneakerhead, I love that. Mike, I'm kicking it to you.
Damn, man. Michael Pittman's going to have to be on the thumbnail after that one.
Yeah.
He's going to have to be on the thumbnail.
No doubt.
I will say this. I value Michael Pittman way more than I value George Pickens. And we just talked about the 106. Like, I definitely take the pick over him. I don't know where this pick is. If it's 107, 108, you kind of touched on it, Nate. Like, all right, we'll have a conversation. If it's anything later than that, give me Michael Pittman. No fucking question about it. Like, I would just take Michael Pittman, and I will roll the dice on the Colts actually doing something good at the quarterback position, and then him actually having that moment going forward. But I will say this. When you start getting to that elite territory, or what I believe to be the elite territory of the 2023 draft class, we do start to have that conversation. And I think if it's 106 or earlier, as much as I can make a case, and you've made a fabulous case for Michael Pittman, now I need to reevaluate everything I thought about Michael Pittman, Nate. I think I still want the pick. Like, the greedy part of me, the dynasty shithead of me the keep trade cut voting person in me is like,
yeah.
I'll take the draft pick. I'll take the unknown. I'll take the thing that I haven't ever seen actually on an NFL field.
It's the mystery box, man. Everybody always wants the mystery box.
Well, and you know what? I think that you already said it best, but let me reiterate that I think that part of that is, right, what are you going to do with the pick? Like if it's 106, 107, and you're going to make the pick and you're going to take Jordan Addison, you're going to take one of these receivers, okay, you're making a bet now. But to me, right. I think the play really is what you're talking about is selling out of that pick for more value accrual at the right time, because there is so much hype. There are months where everybody's going to want 106, 107, 105. So I think that's kind of the flip play that I would be having in mind taking that pick too.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's totally fair, man. This always happens. There's the draft day fever. Everybody wants those picks, and they'll give up just about anybody, especially these guys like Pittman that are that fringe, that 13 to 14.5 fantasy point per game range. Those are the guys. Again, Devonta Smith, I think, was right there last year. And, I mean, those are the guys that suddenly they just have this springboard potential the next year.
Nate, I did a bunch of player solo videos, and the only one I was right on was Devonta Smith. So I'm right there with you on Smitty.
You only got to be right once.
There you go. All right, so we got a 12-team Superflex best ball. It's a full PPR, and it's a tight end premium. We're starting 12 people. It's funny, we talked Zeke earlier. We talked Pollard. Now we got Pollard in a deal. We got Pollard being acquired, our boy Go H Devil, for Pacheco and a 23 third, which is the 305. So, Nate, what do you think, man? Like, I know it's best ball and you're getting a second asset, but man,
I'm just not a fan of Pacheco, man. This was one of my arguments with some of the ranking services that I've seen of late. I saw guys get pushed way up to the top. Dameon Pierce, some of these aged wide receivers. And my thought was always, if one injury is the difference between you dropping that guy 13 spots, 15 spots in the rankings, they never should have been that high in the first place. And a guy like Tony Pollard, if he doesn't re-sign with Dallas, could be fucking dynamite literally anywhere he goes. And any team that gets him, it's not like drafting a guy out of college and kind of trying to see how his game translates to the pros. You know, out of the box, Tony Pollard can do literally everything. So wherever he goes, the belief is that they're going to utilize him that way. I'll take Pollard in this one all day, because I really don't know how long Pacheco even has, to be quite honest with you.
Man, it's funny you say that, because it was literally yesterday on our AMA, which we went way too long, 2 hours. I was talking about one of the things we've learned, Mike and I, Nate, is that, like, when we're making bets, right, in the off season, because there's so much time without football, you do that. I need to do a better job of assessing, okay, if everything hits for this player, what does that ceiling look like? And what you just touched on, right? When it flops, if it flops, how bad is it? And I think that's where that's one of the biggest things I've learned this year, right? That's where we were wrong on Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Because here's the thing: Jamar Chase lost 6 weeks. How many weeks was it? 4 or 5, whatever it was. There was no buy window. Like, the buy window gave you no actual leverage of value.
Right.
Pacheco gets hurt. I mean, it is a wrap on his value. Like
100%.
It is a complete wrap. I mean, you right now kind of have a very divided group on Pacheco. I actually earlier was thinking maybe he could earn some more of this third down work, and Jerick McKinnon came and put that straight to bed. So I think Pacheco might be getting a little overvalued, to your point.
I mean, Go ahead, do it.
I was going to say, I think he's very, very overvalued. Like, I like him, Adam, but we talked about it when we were doing start sit, where it was like, if Pacheco scores a touchdown, he's fine for you on the week. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's fucking nothing, man.
Right.
Like, he's nothing. And we've seen multiple years now with the Chiefs where, you know, I kind of said it tongue in cheek, but I mean it. It just seems like whoever the hot hand at running back is for Kansas City by like week 11 or 12, that's the guy you ride out, you acquire, and you ride out for your fantasy playoffs. It was Darrell Williams last year and some Jerick McKinnon. And this year it's, you know, Isaiah Pacheco. And then the Jerick McKinnon thing again, right? The league winner, Jerick McKinnon. We got to put respect on his name, because he actually probably did win people a lot of leagues this year. But that's the thing with Pacheco. It's like they've shown over multiple years they'll just replace this guy. And I know Nate, you loved Clyde Edwards-Helaire once upon a time, and you fought for him. And there was a time where I was fighting for him. You know, in the offseason, I'm sitting there like, y'all are disrespecting the piss out of this man. Like, he has the draft capital. He has the skill set. He's going to be a thing. And he kind of came out and he had some early season usage where he scored fantasy points, but the usage numbers were like, wait a second here. Like, if you really look at these, I don't know if these are rosy. Like, any CH that I bought, maybe I can hop off them real quick. And it was a good thing if you did, because the Chiefs just said, fuck them. Like, we're going with Pacheco. We're going with McKinnon. So what's to make you think that a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, who they're not tied to at all, not near in the way like a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who they spent a first-round pick on, they didn't spend the draft capital like that on Isaiah Pacheco. They can kick this guy to the curb at any moment, and they'll find the next guy. Hell, they got Melvin Gordon they signed to the practice squad. Maybe they decide next year, like, this is Melvin Gordon's year. This is the year he's going to lead the KC backfield. So if we're looking at this, I've given no analysis on Tony Pollard whatsoever. It's all just negative Isaiah Pacheco stuff, and you couple that together, and I go, I'll take Tony Pollard pretty easy, even in a best ball.
I'll get to Pollard on that, but Nate, I think you had something you wanted to say.
Oh, no, it's all good. I just wanted to say, like, when the season started, and the dynasty player that I am, here's how I played. Immediately after Isaiah Pacheco was being valued at the range of any 2023 first, I was like, hit the fucking alarm, sell this guy. I don't even need to know what he's going to do. Fucking sell him. Yes. Any 2020. And then there was people that were like, nah, you should wait and see because you don't know. And it's like, he was drafted, 30th in the 7th fucking round?
Yeah.
If this guy gets turf toe, his career could be over. Think about this. Taylor gets hurt, not getting replaced. Barkley, ACL, not getting replaced. Brees, not getting replaced. Christian McCaffrey never got replaced. Javonte not going to probably get replaced. I mean, fuck, we could go down this list forever. Why are they not getting replaced? Because fucking draft capital and they're amazing football players. I'm not saying Pacheco might not be a great football player. I'm saying we're probably never going to fucking find out because I don't actually think it goes that far. And so to me, it's like, I don't even know how this trade went down. What week did this happen? Was this recent?
So all these trades, let me just preface that. All these trades, now unless T-Rock pulled some funny business, which T-Rock, we're going to come right back to you. But this is a start 11. I'm sorry. He said, see, this is what I don't understand. 11. See image for settings. So, yeah, it's all over in green.
I mean, what is this? Like, that third-round pick is like throwing cheese on something. Like, it's just a fucking mask what's going on here.
There's two big points, and that one is one of them, right? I think this is a best ball. So Nate, I don't know if you play a lot of these best ball dynasty leagues,
sure.
If you play in any.
Yep.
So, like, the thing that we have – Mike has been the one that started this damn shit show. All right, let me just throw some shade his way because the tear down became a big Mike thing, right? And now, like, he's got a lot of people that tap in to best ball really tearing down, like wanting to tear down to excessive levels. And I think, Nate, this is where you're hitting on it. Like, you're thinking you're tearing down from Tony Pollard to Pacheco. Okay, fine. But the cost to tear down is not the 305. It's not even close because there's the second point is this. Best ball, Nate, we have a big premium, and we talk about two things: spike weeks and consistency weeks, right? The consistent weeks, they matter because they're going to get you points in your lineup and keep you from losing. The spike weeks, they win you weeks. Tony Pollard has 6 weeks as a top 7 running back, with Ezekiel Elliott, like we talked about, being RB1 in a lot of those weeks. Like, that's already been proven what he can do while he's splitting the backfield. What if, like you said, he lands in a good scenario? My God. That to me, I think, is the biggest part of this is the spike weeks. Pacheco, even in Kansas City's offense, doesn't have that scenario. Like, it doesn't exist for him very often outside of, multi-touchdown games, which can happen.
Yeah.
Pollard can go bananas with no one out there.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. Pollard just brings so much upside. And again, like, we just don't know what happens with him. I'd like to believe he doesn't go back to Dallas. I don't know what his allegiance is to Dallas. It seems like Jerry and Dallas know too, like, fuck, if we don't start giving this guy some opportunity, he is really going to walk. And so maybe they are kind of showing them this glimmer of, look, if we extend you on like a 3-year deal, just hang one more year, we'll end up cutting Zeke and the backfield's yours. I could see that scenario. And if the spread continues to work out like this, that split, and I think Zeke will continue to obviously probably lose more work to Pollard over time, then I absolutely love Pollard in Dallas still. But the idea that he could go literally anywhere else. And again, aren't we doing with Pacheco what we did with fucking Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I'm not done with this yet.
No,
like,
yes, we are.
love him more because it's Kansas City, but he's literally getting none of the benefit of fucking Kansas City. He doesn't get targeted hardly ever. McKinnon, who was like a scarecrow, a corpse of a player at one point, he was free in dynasty leagues. Was he not? Was he free?
Nate, I told somebody that, like, if you wanted to cut him, go ahead and do it. He was on waivers in a lot of leagues, even in deep best ball leagues.
That's what happens to 7th round players. Guys that are on fucking waivers that are invisible in dynasty leagues take your job eventually. And Jerick McKinnon was literally winning leagues for people this year. And dude, it's mind blowing. I'm just looking at his stats right now. Over the last couple weeks, 3 games over 20, 2 games over 30, and he's been highly relevant in the passing game. Like, the targets have been insane. This is an Andy Reid running back right here. This is sort of what Shane Vereen and James White type player brought to the table, that 6 to 7 rush attempts, those 5 to 8 targets, and that shit easily translates to 20 points week in and week out. I don't love Jerick McKinnon long-term, obviously, but Isaiah Pacheco, as long as a guy like that exists in Kansas City, his upside is so capped. I think it's a done deal here. I think we know what this is.
Yeah,
Man, Adam, you've made my week just by getting Nate on. Because I've never experienced one of these rants in person. I've always been a spectator.
How much better is it in person, right?
Here we are, January 4th of 2023. Yeah. The calendar just flipped over to the new year, and I can already tell you my year is never going to be better than this fucking moment here. Because I got damn near undrafted running back rant from Nate Liss. I've been craving this.
Let me say,
great pull.
Let me finalize as someone that wasn't beating the drum for CEH to make sure that it's not just Nate with his agenda. All right, this is I actually believe that Pacheco kind of has this value bump because people want to not let the CEH stuff die. Well, Pacheco can be CEH. Like, what? We saw CEH not be CEH, whatever you wanted him to be. What are you talking about? This is now a guy that's, believe it or not, there was a guy that was drafted later that has more dynasty value, and Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy now. So I don't know. It's the draft capital thing plus not getting passing work.
Dude,
it's a bad bet. It's a bad bet.
If they benched a 1st round guy for a 7th round guy, what do you think they'll do to a 7th round guy?
Now let me say this on air too before we switch it. This was, if you go back and watch when I was doing the trade show with Ray, I hadn't quite got caught up to a lot of this, and I was in on a trade for Pacheco that I'm not as much anymore because of a lot of the reasons we already talked about. So, all right, so we got
out here flip flop.
Hey, listen, man, I was beating the drum for Cam Akers, and I was dead wrong. So you got to be wrong sometimes. Ryan Edwards, our boy Redwards, is getting a 24 first for Goff, 12-team best ball league, start 10.
There you go, man.
Jared Goff, let me just start off. I'm going to pass it to Nate. But Jared Goff is – okay, so I think you got 2 things here. The quarterback landscape became worse than anyone could have ever possibly imagined. And Jared Goff, like for me anyway, it's like, oh, they sent him to Detroit to die. And now 2 years in, he's going to be the quarterback next year. And he played really well this year. So – I don't know that there's this ever going to be a lure. Like, it's Jared Goff, for God's sakes. Like, that's the reality. But given the quarterback landscape, it's a good player. But when you talk about the 24 class and that being generic, also what I'm seeing here before I pass it off is he's getting his own pick back. And when I see that, I think this is a shithead that knows what he's doing.
I love it, man. So here's my take. Going in early into the year, actually, it's funny, man. Me and Blitzing Buzzard, we talk a lot. Love that guy. So I told him one of my big sort of underrated calls was I thought Jared Goff at the end of this year would get extended by Detroit. And I honestly still believe that's going to happen. It looks like it will happen. They may have a high pick or high-ish pick, but I still do believe that they're going to extend Jared Goff. With that being said, we saw Jared Goff last year with a clean pocket. He was a great quarterback. And in the past, you go back to the early days with the Rams, once again, with a good pocket, he was a good passer. Here we are this year. I mean, he's only got a top 30 protection rate at quarterback, but by the metrics, by the advanced numbers, yards per attempt are in the top 10. You look at his, deep passing has been a lot better this year. His passing versus man coverage, all these things, everything's really checking out this year. And he looks like a different player than what we've seen over the past couple of years. He's got St. Brown. We've got Jamison Williams in this offense. We don't know what happens with Chark. Maybe Chark gets extended on something simple to keep that explosive factor in this offense. The run game offers a lot of diversity, and this is a winning football team. I mean, they really do look like they're trying to play like solid football at this point with Dan Campbell. So I think the team is bought in. I actually like Jared Goff, and I think he is at a discount. He's a guy, I don't know what he is on Keep Trade Cut. With QB 16, right? That's about where I think people see him right now. So, I mean, that's 16. Kind of and what is that? That's like a late, I mean, in this case, so we're looking at a 2024 first. So that's about the range of a late first in 2024, I would imagine. If Goff gets extended on a 4-year deal, I would take Goff in this case, especially in Superflex. If Goff hits on any level, and what's he averaging this year? About 17.5 points per game.
Yep.
You're going to struggle to get a quarterback that's averaging 17.5 fantasy points per game with a late first-round pick. So I would prefer Goff in this case. Plus, we're a full year out on that pick. Give me the production today and a guy that's proving it right now.
The time is big. Mike, what do you got?
Damn. All right, so I'll say this. With this exact trade, you touched on it a little bit, Adam. Like, if I'm getting my first back, I'm kind of almost signaling the fact that in 2023 I'm going to be dog shit.
Right.
And I want to get that 24 first back. Like, I want the 24 101 back on the team, right? I'm setting myself up to make sure that I have that freedom to rebuild as I see fit without somebody hanging my damn pick over my head. I will say this. If this was just a random 24 first out there, this is the kind of trade that I make on both ends. So on the Redward side, getting the pick, I'm betting against this guy, your boy love to eat. I'm betting against him that he's dog shit and that pick is going to, like, Jared Goff isn't going to save your team, bro. Like, he's not going to save your team. I'm gonna reap the rewards of a high 24 draft pick. But on the other side, if I'm your boy to eat, this is a bet that I make all the time is, hey, I think my 24 pick is going to be late. Like, I feel like my 23 season is going to be phenomenal. I do need a quarterback that I feel is undervalued, and it's tough to get a quarterback in Superflex for a single first, and I'm willing to make the bet on Jared Goff. So as the trade stands, getting my own first back, like, I don't think there's any question about it. I would take my own first back for Jared Goff if I planned on rebuilding. But if I'm on either side of this and this became a random 24, it's just a matter of who's got the bigger stones. And I could have the stones on either side of this deal, and I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it at all.
See, this is why Mike and I got into doing content together, because he's going to say everything that I was going to say, and he takes it from you, right? And you got nothing left to say, because basically that's the gist. We're all actually on the same page. If this is a late 24 first, I think we're all taking Jared Goff. Time is a big thing here, right? I think where I know what we preach, and Ryan Edwards being a Savage tier member, highly active, getting his own 24 first back. See, this is a separate point from the trade that was a big learning point for me this year, Nate. And I'm sure you had to experience it because you're in so many leagues. The variance of fantasy football is insane. And, like, Nate, I had two teams, like, going into this summer, like, right before the season kicks off, August, September. You're like, anybody looks at this team, you're like, this is – not only is it a league winner possibly, it's loaded. One missed the playoffs completely. The other one snuck in as a 6 seed and lost in the first round. Like, injuries, all kinds of shit happens. Having your first is such a flexibility thing. Like, because if you end up having all that variance go against you, you now have the ability to make that 24 first an early 24 first or a top 4 pick, right? Whereas if you don't have your 24 first, you're a failed contender and you don't have your pick, you're so hamstrung. So I think on the surface, Jared Goff over a late 24 first. But I think I know what Ryan's doing here, and I think getting his flexibility back, plus possibly leaning into this 24 class early, I like it for him. But I will say that if you don't make that happen correctly, and if like your boy Love to Eat ends up winning, and Jared Goff's one of these pieces that can matter, I think it's a really good deal, man. I do. I could see it going well for both sides.
It's a tough one, man. You know, Goff needs to get extended for that thing to really pay off. Otherwise, I mean, that was a playoff move. Is that what happened there?
Yeah. So that's the other thing too, right? Like,
okay.
I think that's another great point, Nate, is that Ryan's out of it, getting his 24 pick back, and Jared Goff is going to the team that's trying to win.
Right.
So a lot of these are playoff trades. So that's a really good point.
Playoff moves, man, they change a lot too, don't they? It changes everything.
Mm-hmm. This is why we have all of our playoff deadlines. They don't exist, and people get mad. So
what's a trade deadline, bro?
I don't know what are you talking about. All right, so Nate, here we go. We got a pretty good one here. Castle Black. So we had the Jalen Hurts thing, right? Talking about playoffs, talking about injuries. Jalen Hurts was somebody that won you almost first place, second place, like based on where you got him, what he meant to your team. And all of a sudden, he wasn't playing. So the pivot really here, you're looking at Jalen Hurts in a third for Trevor Lawrence, Peoples-Jones, and Gerald Everett. This is a Superflex lineup start 10.
Superflex start 10. I mean, well, I'm not really a big fan of anything but Lawrence on that other side. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones as the second option in that offense. I think he's done enough to probably be a guy that sticks around the league, at least in Cleveland for a while. But Hurts to me was just absolutely dominant with these weapons around him, knowing that we don't know what's going to happen if Miles Sanders goes. Maybe that changes even more the dynamic in favor of Jalen Hurts. Maybe they become a little more, pass heavy if they've got a different runner back there. I like that Lawrence turned the corner, but Jalen Hurts is like an absolute game breaker. And that third is obviously just icing on the cake. To be quite honest with you, I'm not sure that third even had to go in there for this deal. I think that didn't even need to be in there at all. Because I think Hurts for the package, for somebody that's a fan of Trevor Lawrence, probably would have taken it. But I would take the Hurts side of this deal without really going into any more analysis.
Yeah, that third's kind of like what Mike would do, the finesse. Like the deal probably was already done, but now I got third for Grease later. I think Nate hit this one on the head for me, because if I'm looking at a deep starter best ball team, I'm very much more in on Everett and Peoples-Jones. But if it's start 10, like that's a shallow league setting still. And I like Peoples-Jones a lot. I'm a Browns fan. You can see in the background. But
yeah,
start 10, like it's not a lock that you're starting Peoples-Jones. And I think the big thing here that I want to preach is that when you're tearing down quite a bit from quarterback, obviously you're going to do this because you have Lawrence playing. That's a big part of it. But if you look at it on the surface, right, the cost in the tear down from Jalen Hurts to Trevor Lawrence in dynasty value is big. And I think the reality is in start 10, Everett and Peoples-Jones are highly, highly replaceable.
The big thing for me, Adam, when I look at this, right? So we're talking about fantasy playoff moves, and I made similar moves. We've had them on past trade shows where I was railroaded by the fact that I'm going into multiple important weeks for money for me that I didn't have Jalen Hurts. And this is coming from a guy who is a Jalen Hurts denier, Jalen Hurts, highly critical of him, and then fully bought in. I don't know. We call it by like week 4 of this year. I'm all in on Jalen Hurts. Nate, you're damn right. He's a game wrecker. Like he's a game changer for you. He's elite. Yeah. There's no question about it. Like if you're making a top 5 QB list in Dynasty of fantasy quarterbacks and you don't have Jalen Hurts on it, people should probably not watch your stuff. You should just probably just move on. Right? Yeah, just go to the next. He's in that tier. No question about it. I will say this, though, man. Adam, you know how much I love to leverage the shit out of people. And if somebody's like, I need to get off of Jalen Hurts and I want to stay within this elite tier of quarterback, which is so hard to get to. Not necessarily Jalen Hurts elite, But I don't think there's any doubt in people's minds that Trevor Lawrence turned a corner and he's in that top 10 conversation for dynasty quarterback. And once you get outside the top 12, it gets really scary. It gets really disgusting. It gets really gross. You're making bets on Jared Goff and Daniel Jones and Kenny Pickett, and you're hoping Kirk Cousins doesn't have meltdowns when you need him the most. You're betting on like Trey Lance coming back from an injury and actually being something which we've never seen yet. We're still just waiting and seeing and projecting. So staying within that elite tier is highly beneficial to the manager who just lost Jalen Hurts in the playoffs and needs to still compete. So that's why I say about leverage. Yeah, I'll give you Gerald Everett. I don't care. I'll give you Donovan Peoples-Jones. Nice story, blah, blah, blah. You can make your arguments for him. But even that third, like you said, Nate, like I want to go to Jalen Hurts if I'm not competing. Yes, I want Jalen Hurts over Trevor Lawrence, no question about it. I just want to make you feel it if I'm still going to give you an elite quarterback and kind of give you a bailout, right? I always want to put that pressure on the other manager. So for me, it's a good deal all around. Like, no question about it. On the surface, I want Jalen Hurts in the third. You can have Everett, Peoples-Jones, and Trevor Lawrence. Castle Black, man, he's a patron of ours. He's an Eagles guy. He's an Eagles fan. Just put the pressure on him, man. Like, this guy's up against the wall facing elimination in the playoffs. If he wants to stay in, make him pay for it. Make him pay the piper.
Simply put, and I want to get Nate's final thoughts, is that simply put to me, it's right. 1 week value, right? Like if you move from Jalen Hurts to Trevor Lawrence and whatever, Everett and Peoples-Jones, and you win a title because of it, like, okay, you're going to do that. But if you don't win a title, now what have you really lost? I think that's where this is such a huge playoff bet, man.
I'll tell you what. So I'll tell you a story about I had Jalen Hurts. He got hurt, and I got put over a barrel by J.J. Zacharyson.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I was going to say about this trade before I say the story. So I don't know, by the way, that the guy that's giving up Hurts doesn't have maybe Evan Ingram or doesn't have Christian Kirk and kind of felt like, hey, I'll make this trade too because we could put a stack together. I don't know what's in that offense, but nonetheless, I think we all agree on that side. But so I was in this league with all these guys. Scott was in it. JJ's in it. Pat Corain's in it. Jax Falcon. Lots of guys. So I just won this league. I went 15-0 and won the league, right? So, which is crap. I've never won a league undefeated.
Damn.
And so it was semifinals, lost Jalen Hurts, and you can make trades in the playoffs. A lot of dynasty leagues I play in, you can't make trades in the playoffs. I actually think it's dope when you can, personally speaking. Kind of a different dynamic. So it was almost game day, and JJ hits me up. And he goes, hey, man, looks like you need a quarterback. He's got fucking Gardner Minshew. And I'm like, what do you want for Minshew, man? And he goes, I want a 2023 second. And I'm a competitive team. I think it's a 14-team league. So I'm thinking, all right, well, that's a late second at minimum. So I kind of go back and forth. My only other option is Brady. So I sent it for Minshew. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. Now, I would like to get your take on whether you would have done this. So I sent it for Minshew. Win that game because Minshew put up like 27 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And I go to the finals, and I'm looking at my lineup, and I don't love what's going on. And I make one last trade the week of, and I end up getting rid of Kadarius Toney because I just was back and forth on Toney, didn't know what to think of him, and I sent him for DJ Chark in the title game. And Chark had an all right week. I think he had like 8 points. But honestly, to your point about what you're talking about here, I got to live with giving up a second in the future for Minshew, who, in all honesty, that might be the guy in the Colts that I would love to see. He seems like the type of guy that could go there and they could probably thrive for a season. But I also don't know if he doesn't just end up a backup. And it's tough to make these sort of ballsy plays because if I lose, sure, I can live without a second. But it's going to sting to put it all on the line just to lose and give up a second for just one fucking moment to push the chips in.
Hey, man, you're preaching to the choir. I've done this about a billion times, man.
So well said.
I've done this a billion fucking times, Nate, and I do it all the time. Listen, I just focus on the championship and the money and the bragging rights, period.
Yep.
And if the cost is my late second, if it's a third round pick, even if it's an early third from somebody else I got, fuck that pick. It's gone. It is gone because the championship means all. Like, think about it, Nate. In most of these leagues, I wrote an article for the newsletter, Destination Devy newsletter, where it talked about, like, you kind of got to put the dynasty mindset aside when you get into the playoffs. And these pertinent moves, don't be reckless with it. You can still operate within the constraints of dynasty value because people won't stray too far from it. But these moves that you make for the championship, if you win the title or you even get to the championship game, in most leagues, second place is paying out double or triple your league dues, right? That's 2 years free. I get to play in this league just for making it here. Now, if you win it, some of them are 7, 8, 9 times your league dues. That's 8 years of late second round picks that I can accrue for free on other people's money. And that's what's most important to me. That's why I play dynasty football. Yes, it is this long-term outlook, but when you get down to the playoffs and the nut crunching time, lineup, best ball, doesn't matter. Those moves, I'm willing to just shoot for the moon on them, and if I fail, I fail. But most of the time, they actually work out. Like that Zeke and that Zeke trade that we kicked off the show with. It didn't help me win the league. It didn't hurt me. It didn't lose me. It's just kind of whatever. But if I just sit pat and I'm like, well, I wouldn't trade Derrick Henry for Zeke and this. I know you guys like the deal outside of that fact, but those are still the kind of moves where I'm willing to do. So you're talking about sending a late second for Gardner Minshew. He may be nothing. He may be worthless next year. Who the hell cares, Nate? If it gets you the paper, it gets you the paper. So I'm with you, man. I would have done that move in a heartbeat, and I wouldn't even thought twice about it.
Well, here's, I think, the big thing, right? This is why we've talked about for a while the rigidness of a contender and the absolute insane flexibility of a rebuilder, right? Because you if you can craftily make these moves based on timing of someone that wants to win, it matters a lot on a rebuilder. And I know we're talking late seconds, but if you win enough of those trades, that's how you value catapult your team ahead, right? That's big. And the difference with the rigidness, right, is what Nate's talking about. Now, in the scenario of a late second, fuck that pick. Maybe you land Gibson, but it's still, if that late second's on the board and you're like, man, I didn't win and Minshew didn't do shit for me, you're gonna think about it. But now, when we talk about this trade to kind of wrap it up, right? When you're going to this level, because I love T-Law. Let me just say I love T-Law. And I know he's had a quarterback 1 week, but the spike weeks and consistency weeks are so drastically different right now, right? And wrapping this up, start 10, Everett and Peoples-Jones, as much as I like them, they're completely replaceable. So it makes sense. You go get Lawrence, you win the title. But, man, if you don't win the title, Jalen Hurts next year is going to be a top 3-4 startup pick. And that is incredible value that you might lose. So it's a wild one to me, man.
I agree.
Nate, it's also a little bit different for us too. So much of our leagues that we do anymore is best ball, and I think back, Adam can talk about it. These injured player moves, not even in the playoffs, but in the season. Think kind of back, what Juju Smith-Schuster's value was last year when he was still on Pittsburgh. Think back a year. Also think of DJ Chark at the time, right? Both those guys go down in the same week, and I'm going I got this contending roster that I want, but I'm going to have 2 zeros for the rest of the year. They're not playing for the rest of the year. I go out and I trade for a Leonard Fournette who at the time hadn't been producing like Lombardi Lenny like we'd seen,
right.
and an Evan Ingram, and then I get a Darrell Williams of all things just thrown on top. And literally those 3 pieces last year are leading me towards a championship. So when I say on these contending teams, if the move makes sense, I just go ahead and I'll get crusty and I'll throw caution to the wind and I'll go for it. Adam and I talked on our 4D episode. One of the big things that we learned, though, in the Dynasty season is I'd been making those moves or pushing my draft picks in too soon. And I wish come playoff time, with all these injuries, I wish I was in the position like you where I was like, yeah, I still got my second. I might be able to go buy a Brock Purdy or a Gardner Minshew or whoever the fuck I need at quarterback just to get me by. Instead of having to sell my Jalen Hurts who's injured, right? I'd rather hold on to that guy, right?
I covet in a lot of my leagues. I still have all my picks. I'm a contender in most every league that I'm in, because what happens is in season people are like, yeah, you guys have probably had this numerous times. I've had it thousands of times. You go to make a trade and someone goes, nah, man, because that's going to be a late first. And it's you always get hit with that. But guess what? When the draft comes around, They don't give a fuck that it's a late first because you're putting faces to picks now. So it's just a different world. So I would have never, honestly, in that scenario, I was 14-0, all these, sharks in this league. I wanted to win bad. But if he had said to me, nah, first round pick for Gardner Minshew, I would have been like, fuck it, I'm taking the L then, because I don't think I was willing to push it into that degree.
No, yeah. And the last point I'll make about this too, because Nate, you talked about how dope it is to have the trade deadline off. I think one thing that isn't talked about, and I'll give you an example of me last year, right, that paid big dividends this year. So, Nate, you're in the wild card game, and you lose a heartbreaker. Like, you think this team's ready to go. You didn't earn the bye, then you lose. Like, that sucks. The deadline's off. We'll see you in 2 weeks. You can look at everybody else, go play for the money. But when the deadline doesn't exist because it shouldn't exist, okay, now I'm more mindful of, like, let me prepare for 2023. At this point, 2022. I made a trade to a team that just beat me, right? Which it sucked, but I got Travis Etienne, who was done for the year, and 2/3, and I sent him James Conner and Hunter Renfrow because Etienne's giving him nothing, right? And Renfrow was balling, and James Conner was balling. Now, I'll tell you this, as bad as that trade was, and I want you to think about that, where it is dynasty value now, this is a perfect example of rigidness and flexibility. Great trade for me long-term. But Sean 12, who we dunked on all the time, that trade ended up helping him win a fucking title. So it's insane, but that's like what can happen when you have the deadline off. It's a big deal. All right, so we got a much smaller deal with a bunch of running backs that have had some up and down values. But this is a shit league, so we are looking at a best ball, Superflex, PPR, tight end premium. We're starting 14, so it's a lot of starters, and it's best ball. Dameon Pierce and Pierre Strong, or Brian Robinson and Shaheed. Obviously, I think you're going to get B-Rob and Shaheed, but like this is kind of a crusty deal, Nate. But where are you at with this one?
Shaheed's an interesting one because he's kind of come on performance-wise, despite not like monster opportunity. He's performed when given those chances, but again, this is another one of these guys, undrafted player. You guys clearly know my brand. Like, this is just not the type of player that I lean into. With that being said, I was a big fan of Pierre Strong because I felt like he was sort of that archetype to James White, Shane Vereen-esque, the way that they were treating him, sort of that off first year, started to come in towards the end. New England, I'm not totally sold on Ramondre Stevenson in the long term. The talent profile clearly at the NFL level is great. There's no doubt about it. I don't trust Belichick, and I don't trust this backfield at all. Also, if you go look at the history of contracts for these running backs, these guys get turned out one after the next every time. I really do like Pierre Strong. With that being said, I don't think that I would say that Brian Robinson has any better odds of hitting than I would Dameon Pierce. I mean, Dameon Pierce, a fourth-round guy. Again, another guy that I said when he fired off, I said sell him for the highest pick you can get because he's a fourth-round guy. With that being said, Houston would have to bring in competition. He has looked good. Brian Robinson still has Gibson behind him, and I don't really trust Shaheed. So I would say Strong and Pierce for me on this one.
Mike, what do you got?
This is another thing I love about having Nate. Like, the Gibson truthers need to unite. We need to have a unified front. Antonio Gibson needs more love, and I despise Brian Robinson with a passion. I despise him with a passion, but let's be honest about it. I mean, Rivera he's got to be on the verge of getting canned. And then what does it look like when they bring in a new regime with Brian Robinson, right? Everybody kind of got used to the usage, and here late in the season, he took the forefront and he's taken most of the carries and kind of made Antonio Gibson an afterthought for the most part. But it is what it is, man. I don't think he was a great prospect coming out. He's just kind of a plotter. He hasn't really shown you a whole lot. Him and Dameon Pierce, he hit it on the head. Like, if I got to make this bet, like, I'm not going to lie, I probably lean Dameon Pierce just a little bit. Like, I don't think his profile is anything super great, but I've seen more from him as far as usage goes and actually putting up fantasy numbers. Why not make the bet on him? The Rashid Pierre Strong thing, like, I don't know. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility for Pierre Strong to be a thing next year. I mean, I never thought Ramondre Stevenson would be a thing, and yet here we are. And then by the time I buy into him, Ray comes on and tells us, yeah, you guys need to be selling Ramondre. That's going to be one of my biggest sells in the offseason. It just breaks my damn heart.
Ramondre?
Yeah.
Yep, he said
the
sell
pump and dump,
Ramondre.
man. The pump and dump.
Yeah, I'm with it.
But I mean,
I mean, the Pierre Strong, Damian Pierce side, I'm with you, Nate. Like, if I look at it, I'll take that side. I mean, I kind of like what I've seen from Shaheed, but I mean, what are we betting on? Like, I've seen wide receivers with better draft capital and better profiles and actually produce more fail far more often than I've seen this guy. And I mean, it's a nice story, one to monitor, but if he ever actually does hit and becomes a real thing, you can always buy into those guys, like after they have proven production. Like if you really believe into them, doesn't matter if it's a running back, if it's a quarterback, a tight end, wide receiver, it doesn't matter the position. When they come from so far back, you can buy into them at a reasonable cost that won't be cost prohibitive to you. So the way it looks right now, I think this is a heady move from Kozu. Like I'll take the Pierre Strong, I'll roll the dice on him, and I'm making the same bet with Brian Robinson or Damian Pierce. I really don't care. Like, just give me the Pierce guy.
I mean, here's the thing, though. When you look at this deal, right, this is a very low-end level of what you saw last deal. Like, this is Damian Pierce is on IR. Brian Robinson's playing. Like, here's what I can tell you for sure. Brian Robinson, as much as if you are someone that is a fan of him, he has hit 50% snap share, I think, twice. Like he is a 2-down grinder that's going to get a bunch of carries, and on this team with what they're projected to have, like I don't really want a lot of those 2-down grinders. Damian Pierce, I've been a sell. I'm kind of with Nate here, but like if I go 1-for-1, Damian Pierce is one of these guys that can still see 70% snap share. That is total game changer. So like Kozu in the long run, I easily want that side, and I will still make the bet on Pierre Strong. Even in a fucked up backfield in New England where you never know what could happen, I still never know what could happen, and they did draft Pierre Strong decently high. Shaheed, I think, in best ball is a perfect like buy candidate in this scenario too. You know, he's been playing well. Like to your point, Nate, we don't buy into these guys. But in best ball, like they actually have a little bit more value because it's like, all right, I'll take Shaheed at the back end of my in best ball, the taxi's gone, right? The IR is gone. So let me just get the zeros off for Shaheed. So I think this is one of those where this is clearly a rebuild and contender move. But long term, I don't think it's that close. I want Damian Pierce pretty easy.
Yeah, Damian Pierce proved it, man. I mean, the snap share was way up there. It was multiple weeks where he was pushing 80%. I mean, he looked like the guy. I mean, the way that we saw Ramondre Stevenson kind of come on, and I agree. I always felt like Stevenson was probably a sell. New England's just so dicey. But there's really nothing that says that next year in Houston, they can't bring in a compliment to Damian Pierce and see what they get year one. They're probably bringing in a young quarterback. There's probably a change that's taken place. But there's nothing that says we have to necessarily write him off. I think he proved that he is a talented player in the league. It's just with the injury, you felt that gut check moment that I was kind of talking about earlier. Oh, you really think he's a top 12 guy? He got hurt. Now what do you think? Because now he's fallen to number 18, 19, 20, and it's like you didn't do that with Saquon Barkley. You didn't do that with Christian McCaffrey. And this guy's a rookie at what, 20? Is he 21, 22 and a half years old, almost 23?
Yep.
Still pretty young, gets hurt for the rest of the year and falls like 12 dynasty spots at his position. That's just not what happens to players that, A, have high market value amongst, buyers' perception, and B, are guys that you really believe in. Like, gun to the head, do you believe in Damian Pierce? The market says no. So I still like him more than Brian Robinson, despite that entire rant. But, it's to me, that side's pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
Adam, you touched on it a little bit earlier in the show where we were talking about our how we look at it from a best ball lens with above average weeks or spike weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I was being too nice to Brian Robinson, too. Because this guy only has 2 on the year. Like, 2 above average weeks on the entire fucking year.
Yep.
Damian Pierce has done it 6 times. Yep. 6 times.
Well, and that's the thing. I think skill set wise, Damian Pierce, the draft capital is not there. And his ability to do what he did was because this team's void of talent, and that's why he got the the snap share, but like it's still in the range of outcomes. Like Nate's right. They could totally draft a compliment somewhere, which lowers that. But I don't think people quite wrap their heads around, like, you get close to 80% snap share. That's elite snap share. Like that now is elite. And I can tell you for a fact, there's no scenario on any football team that Brian Robinson is getting third down work. Like, it's a 40, 50% guy. So
yeah,
there alone, I'm making the bet no matter what.
Yeah. And we only had 6 guys this year with over 70% snap share. So when Dameon Pierce was hitting that market, and again, what is Brian Robinson has like 9 receptions on the year? Again, we all play in PPR because we're civilized human beings. But if you're not playing in it, that changes everything. But I don't know that Brian Robinson scoring that many touchdowns anyways. But Dameon Pierce, with that being said, like, the pass catching upside to him this year was pretty mind-blowing, because I didn't think he was going to get utilized that way, especially with the quarterback play. So I think it brings upside, and again, confidence going into next year despite the injury. I'm still much higher on Pierce. Also, not having to look over his shoulder at fucking supercharged Antonio Gibson, who's always, an opportunity away. Yeah,
like if Riverboat Ron's gone, all of a sudden this whole Gibson thing really takes fire, and Mike is coming, coming with the sword all offseason again. So.
Adam, I'm glad it was a surprise, but if I would have known Nate was coming on, I should have ran upstairs and put on the Antonio Gibson jersey just so we can really bring the show together.
It's not too late.
All right, man. So we got a no settings. All right, so here you go. No settings.
There it is.
Shane Joe is getting, I guess, this is a very decent tear down, because A.J. Brown and T. Higgins are both very highly ranked guys. I think A.J. Brown's clearly ranked higher at the moment, but T. Higgins and a 24 second and another 24 second. He's getting his own back, and he's getting someone else's 24 second. He's sending away A.J. Brown and a 23 third. I mean, the no setting things kind of can convolute this, but Nate, like, just overall as a generic trade, like, where are your thoughts on this one?
Man, I'm a big T. Higgins fan. I really am a big T. Higgins fan. And when I'm looking at 2 second-round picks in addition to Higgins, a guy who's, and I was just looking at the numbers here, I don't know the difference between him and A.J. Brown right now in production. What is it, 2 fantasy points a game maybe right now?
Yeah, well, A.J. Brown started like nuclear, but he really cooled lately, and it's probably 2 or less.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to bring up too, is the fact that Devonta Smith coming on as strong as he has over the last 5 games is really illuminating, because early in the year, one of the articles I wrote, I was looking into the fact that when Jalen Hurts rushes 14, 15 times a game, somebody becomes sort of deficient in target share. And it did go back and forth between Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown throughout the year. That's not one of the issues that T. Higgins has to face. And Higgins has performed with Jamar Chase and without Jamar Chase. Plus, you're getting 2 seconds. I love A.J. Brown, but with a loose injury history, competition from Devonta Smith, who hasn't missed any games, a run-first quarterback, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't just take those lottery tickets and T. Higgins, a guy that's had monster weeks, and just be absolutely happy with it, because that's a pretty damn good trade.
I'm 100% with you. I think this is a name value discrepancy based on how A.J. Brown played early. And I think the other thing, too, is like, I think if this is made in, let's say, like week 6, you probably got some people screaming. Like, this was made, as Nate just talked about, as like A.J. Brown has, it seemed like ever since that damn cut when he, messed something up, he hasn't been this A.J. Brown. And we've seen the injuries before. It's also funny, I'm going to kick it to Mike, how, this Devontae Smith thing, how convoluted it was. Offseason this year was highly volatile, where you believed in, Devontae Smith. Week 1 seems like forever ago. He didn't have a catch, and everybody was announcing this guy's dead, right? Like, it's over. Yep. And it's funny how that 1 week was, I think, another big point, the fickleness of these dynasty managers. 1 week to start the year off, and we're going to write this guy's career off after a great rookie year.
Yep. These are 2 wide receivers that I have an affinity for, right? I'm an Eagles fan. I love A.J. Brown. I love everything that he does, and I have him ranked higher than T. Higgins, but it isn't by much. It isn't by much at all. T. Higgins is a guy that I've been fighting for, just, it feels like tooth and nail for some people, just to get it through how good T. Higgins is at football. And I was talking in the Destination Devy Discord, I think last week before the Buffalo game, but T. Higgins had 2 games where one game he ran one route and then sat on the bench with that hamstring. And that was just a couple weeks ago. But early in the season, I don't know if you guys remember, he ran like 6 routes and then just parked it, right? He had another hamstring problem where they're just worried about. If you take those 2 out and you look at fantasy points, I mean, you're looking at a 17 point per game fantasy point scorer at the wide receiver position. Now you look at A.J. Brown for the total and you go, well, he's a 17-point guy. That's why it's this close to me. When T. Higgins is playing with Jamar Chase, without Jamar Chase, doesn't matter. Doesn't Chevy Chase. Doesn't fucking matter what Chase is in there. T. Higgins is good at football. Now, is he the alpha of the team? You can debate that to your blue in face. It doesn't matter. Whether he stays in Cincinnati long term, they franchise him, he goes to another team. T. Higgins is just good at football. So if you're going to tell me I can come off a receiver and do what I love to do, the tear down, and you're going to give me 2 seconds and all it costs is my third to go back, sign me up, man. I'll take an equal tier receiver, in my opinion, take the draft capital, and just say thank you and be on my way.
Now, let me say this too. This was a deal that I know happened in a startup, and after listening to our pod, right, he went and got flexibility back. He said, you know what, I lost my 24-second. If everything doesn't go right, I now can control if that's going to be early. I think regardless of whether that pick is, I'll take the 2 seconds in 24 and T. Higgins, but he also got his second back in 24, and if the cars don't fall his way, I think you have a lot more ability to control where that second becomes. And I honestly think we talked about this a bunch, but 24, 23 hype got insane in like 21, and it just kept getting crazy. And I'm not saying it's a bad class, but the 24, it has a potential to be insane class. You make that an early pick, holy shit.
I like it, man.
You could package up. I mean, it just gives you firepower going into draft classes, and it's just a lot of flexibility. But again, I mean, you guys hit it, man. I love A.J. Brown. I don't think the gap is super enormous, and I think what we're going to see over time is that change a little bit more. And again, like I was just kind of looking into this, you look at these guys on like a point per target basis, they're basically neck and neck, and that's considering that A.J. Brown has 4 more receiving touchdowns on the year. I mean, he has more targets on the year as well, but T. Higgins has been ultra productive this year, and we're seeing him come on stronger and stronger. And with Joe Burrow, kind of still refining as a quarterback and bringing more and more to the table, if he continues to get that uptick as a passer, dude, sky is the absolute limit for these guys. Because, dude, T. Higgins has 104 targets this year, 110 last year. There's no way that we're going to look down the road here if he stays in with Cincinnati, that he isn't going to touch a 135, 140 target season. Like, that is certainly in his range of outcomes. Oh, yeah. And that just drives up that fantasy production that right now he's just not getting the opportunity for.
Let me ask you, both you guys, real quick before we get out of here, to try to tighten the gap. If that's a 24-second and T. Higgins, you took one of those seconds away, are we taking the A.J. Brown side?
Yes. I'm going yes on this.
I would because I think there's everything we just talked about. A.J. Brown carries more dynasty weight that I can trade away, which is why I will lean that, because I think the difference in a 1 second to 1/3, and it's a year earlier, may not be that much.
Man, we kind of talked about this just the other day, Adam. I think last night on the AMA specifically, where we look at dynasty ranks, right? We look at Chase and Jefferson. We go, these guys are 1 and 2. And then we look at a guy like CeeDee Lamb, and I think we can come to agreement, whether it's CeeDee Lamb or A.J. Brown, whoever you want to put at 3, doesn't really matter to me. When I look at the difference or the gap from 1 and 2, and then the gap from, like, say, 3 to 9, 3 to 9 is much, much fucking closer to me than the gap between 2 and 3, right?
Sure.
It feels like mountains between the top 2 guys and whoever's next. So this is what makes it hard, is because I literally look at A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb and Waddle and Amon-Ra, T. Higgins, Tyreek, Stephon Diggs, regardless of age, which I'm going to stop doing that shit. But I look at those guys and I go, man, I could put all these guys into a tier, and like, I'm good with any of them. I do get your point about dynasty value and tradability away, but it's not like people fucking hate T. Higgins. I mean, he's keep trade cuts wide receiver 8. that's still relatively high for me. And I've always kind of been the person, if I can trade within my own tiers, like guys that I think are in the same tier, which I would put A.J. Brown and T. Higgins
You'll take
in,
the better place.
and you give me anything of consequence, a third, a second, just give me anything on top of it, I will take the two-sided part hand over fist. So if this trade was reversed and somebody was like, I want your T. Higgins so bad, I'll give you A.J. Brown in a second, I'd be over the moon for that as well. So it wouldn't matter to me if you took away one of these seconds.
Would you take T. Higgins in 1 second for your A.J. Brown in the 23 third is, I guess, the question.
Yeah, I'm still getting something, right? I'm getting a pick swap. I'm making the bet. I'm making the bet against his pick versus my pick in the third round. That could be up to a full round difference for me. It may at worst end up being 3-4 spots.
Now, I'll say that it's not necessarily wrong. I think that the reason that I will take the up tier here is because when I look at it, right, and I look at the way people value things, A.J. Brown, we talk about Devontae Smith. I think this is the perfect case of why I'll take the third in A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith, even though he's been balling, like A.J. Brown still has alpha. T. Higgins will never have that. Even if he was the alpha, he's never going to have that. So that's where I think there's a weight that is hard to explain in just that value. So.
Well, I mean, dude, just their snap share alone, bro. I mean, what is A.J. Brown is one of the top in the league at the last couple of weeks, 32%, and T. Higgins is still floating around like 18%. I mean, again, I think those targets go up over time, but A.J. Brown just commands targets. And so, to me, even though the production is close and over some weeks it has been close, like name cachet, production opportunity, it's still in A.J. Brown's favor. And he's not accidentally averaging 18 points a game this year. So, the guy can play.
I think the reason I wanted to do that is because a single second and a third, like I think we'll take the A.J. Brown. It should give you an idea of that extra second is what makes it. I'll take the other side. All right, this is it, man. Mike, are you going to get the Antonio Gibson? Because this is the last trade.
This is it, huh?
You're going to get that jersey?
I got to put on my readers for this.
Yeah, this is this is a true. And in T-Rock fashion, because T-Rock, was the one that pulled the trades, this is the finale. And, wow.
He's got to get himself on here, right?
T-Rock, let me say this. The fact that you threw all these picks in there, and when you look at it, there's a majority of 24 and 25 picks. Now, there is a 25 first, which I'll give you credit for there. But you're just throwing all that shit at the wall.
What?
But look at what's being happened here. I mean, so you got, okay, you're tearing down from Hurts and you're getting Burrow. Like, I think I'll take Burrow given the injury. But I want probably Hurts still in the vacuum. Jonathan Taylor, like I'm trying to pair. I guess you could probably pair Amon-Ra not far behind, but I still think Taylor's going to have the weight value over him. Look at the rest of this, though. I mean, Dalton Schultz, sure, but like,
what are we looking at here? What is this?
I mean, this is great. Chris Moore, who could go absolute to dust. KJ Osborne, who was dust and had a big week in a giant comeback game, and everyone's back in on KJ Osborne. And Brock Purdy, who's a great story, Mr. Irrelevant, but like once
Trey
again,
Lance on a rookie deal.
Right? You got Purdy, Osborne, and Moore, who could be complete dust by this time right now.
This is what I told you about Nate. When we get to the championship week, I will sell my soul to the fucking devil to bring home the bag.
Well, but let me say why Nate's face is like this. I think that's if you took away all the picks. Like T-Rock got a 25 first with Hurts and with Taylor. That's crazy.
There it
Did
is.
you win the title?
Yeah, more than likely. Yep.
More than likely. So
More than likely.
Well, you know what?
This is the one I'm talking about.
This is the only backfire though, because maybe it wasn't even his fault that he had to split, right? Because we had a undecided game.
Okay. I mean, let's just do this right here. Fourth round, don't care about. Fifth round, don't care about. Third round, not terrible. Fourth round, don't care about. Fifth round, like you're just unloading picks at this point because nothing's coming out of there. So basically, it's a first, second, third, Jalen Hurts
And
Taylor for basically Schultz, Burrow, St. Brown, Purdy's toast, Osborne's toast, Moore's toast. I mean, look, he knows what he did. He knows what he did here. I mean, he knows what he did.
Is it any doubt to end the show that T-Rock pulled the trades today?
No. He knew. I'll say this, Nate, though, too. Like, when you look at it, when I say, like, more than likely won the league, like, I don't
want to look at it.
I had some other things going where it's like I'm in the lead, but then we had the uncertainty of Monday night where that's like, yeah. The guy's like, hey, do you want to split? And I'm like, nah, man. Like, I was about to gape your ass. I already was gaping you, and it was about to get worse. But if you look at the players in the deal, right, the ones in best ball. So
yes.
KJ Osborne was a wide receiver 1 for me in championship league. In my lineup, 20 points. Dalton Schultz, tight end 1 for me, 31 points. Brock fucking Purdy. I don't care if he's dead or not. I'll trade a 25 first-round pick to get Brock Purdy in because he scored 29 points. My QB2, sign it up. Joe Burrow would have gaped him Monday night.
I mean, you got to have nuts the size of watermelons with this trade.
That's why they call him McNutted, man.
Yeah, it's clearly.
Go for it.
Very, very clearly. No, I mean, look, the St. Brown part of it, incredible. Burrow, incredible. Those two players alone have immense dynasty value. But 1-for-1 with Jalen Hurts and Taylor, I mean, it's very close between those two already. But then the first and the second, lottery tickets in a sense. I mean, I like the Hurts side, obviously. I'm a Hurts fan. I like Jonathan Taylor. It's a great side. But if you won a title and you ended up with guys that are going to carry you into next year that have incredible value, it's not that terrible, especially when we consider that first might not fire, that second might not fire, third, So I look at them like assets. Sometimes I hate drafting the rookies because I'm trying to avoid the bust factor.
Yes.
But it's so far in the future, man. 2025. I might be dead in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, well, I
think T-Rock just wanted Nate to approve of a trade just one time that he made. So this is the one he pulled.
Here's what I like, right? We had, the Mike surprise. They're all excited, and then the first graded trade is like Nate's on his team, and then it's like, who's making this trade to finish it up? I love the finish of this fucking show. This is fantastic. Great. Mike's crusty best ball trade with Mike. I think I almost have to pull up Sleeper right now to make sure. Like, did you win this trade? Because did you win the league? Because you win the trade if you win the league. Otherwise,
yeah, man. If you didn't win the league,
that's the main thing. I think, honestly,
that's everything. Baby.
Was this shit 3? What league was this? Shit 2?
Shit 2.
Shit 2. Here we go. All right.
Oh,
the one where I won in the league Monday night, right?
I'm nervous for you right now.
Woo! Good. We're good.
I'm nervous for you.
Here's what I will say. Is there any Bills on the other side? So right now, Nate, let me just tell you.
Yeah.
Currently, it's 329.36 in Mike's favor versus 327.73. So it's a 2-point. It's a 2-point win, but like what I'm asking here, Mike, is there any is it officially you don't have to split? He doesn't have a single guy in that game, so he did win. Holy crap!
So you officially won.
Yeah, he didn't have the other team didn't have a single Bengal or Bill.
That's damn close.
That's threading the fucking needle. Holy hell! 2 points.
Listen, man. I had Burrow still going. I had Tyler Boyd, and I had Joe Mixon. Okay?
Oh, that is true. He did have Burrow too. So we
could have added to this total, and it wouldn't be 329. It might have been 429 by the end of the night. Okay, and it would have looked horrible for him.
All I know is Mike's riding the fact that Brock Purdy is 29.
Just like Ray on his wake up show, right? He's got that sounder, man. Count that money, man. That's what I'm doing. I'm counting the money. Counting the money. You can have your 25 first and second. And my guy Jalen Hurts and my guy Jonathan Taylor. I got the championship. Man. I'm wearing the crown. I'm wearing the belt. I'm going to go eat on T-Rock for helping me win this one. I'm not giving him a damn dime of this money, though. Not a damn dime. I already did him a favor.
All I know, too, is that this trade, because of the absolute ridiculousness, like, this looks insane. Look at all the fucking garbage picks you threw into. Now, the 25 first, 25 second, and the third, like Nate talked about, are valuable. But like, you just who sent this? Who sent this?
He's gonna have to cut players.
Yeah, Mike sent this. This is a Mike send deal. All of the picks. Man.
Is this the first trade you sent, or is this modified?
The first deal that I sent him was for all the shit that I got back. Right, I sent him Taylor and Hurts and the first and the second. And he comes back and he was like, "Where's the injury discount, the championship week add-on that I get?" And so I sent him all the thirds and fourths and fifths, and I'm like, "There, I gotta go to work. I gotta go, do
There's
some
your
podcast content. So either you accept this shit, or we're done." And obviously, he just said, "Fuck it."
Now, Nate, we talked about. I'll wrap it up here.
Yeah,
we talked about how the playoff trades are really dope. I think for people that can handle it, because if you put 90% of dynasty managers in a league and you saw this T-Rock Mike trade go down, you would cause a complete conniption. You wouldn't. I don't want payouts. I want out. I want the league nuked. So like this is what can happen though when the playoff trades happen, where it's like this is a lot of moving pieces, and I think for a lot of people are gonna really scratch their heads and be pissed.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, winning the league was everything, because it's probably be a shame fest had you not won the league. Ultimately, that was a lot of nonsense, a lot of noise in there. But there were picks, and yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people would struggle to deal with seeing a trade of that magnitude with those type of players. But you guys both passed important players back and forth. And I always say with the rookie picks, it's like, dude, we don't know what's going to happen with those picks. We don't know where they're going to land. We don't know who you're going to draft. We don't know if that guy's going to hit. So I tend to let that go. If I see like if there was none of the marquee players, it was just all picks, then I would kind of start to bring up like, man, okay, wait a minute. You're sending this guy all these elite players. He's battling for a title. He just gave you a bunch of picks. This clearly seems like collusion or it's shitty, but look, man, you gave up a lot there. I would say you took it in the shorts a little bit, but you got the title, so only took it in like one.
Yeah, Mike has the stones, man. Like you said, he will do that in the offseason. He made trades on a discount just to fire up Twitter, and somehow, Nate, some fucking lucky how, they all worked out for him. I don't know how, but they did. So
I won that league too, man.
I don't understand it, but
it's just what I do, man. I rate trades and I win leagues. It's just I don't know. It's a gift.
Let me say this, man, Nate. It was fun to do this, and I think the large majority of the time we had a lot of similar thoughts, and it should show everybody that Nate Liss is a part of why that we're doing this, and we learned a lot of the shit that we talk about in 4D from Nate Liss, the player profile. It feels like we've been watching you for forever.
We're live right now. I don't know what's going
on. We're back.
Give me a point. What is that?
We're back.
What a lead-in.
Yeah.
What a lead-in.
Yeah, wow. It's like nothing happened. Everything's been totally normal since looking at that totally fucked up trade. But
yeah, we have Nate Liss on. I'm late now. I have storage issues. It's what we have going on.
The fucking trade was so bad it killed Adam's computer. That's what happened.
It did.
It stopped us.
Melted his computer. It didn't want to see it either. So yeah, man. I listen. I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, it's still. I've said this off air. It's still funny to me to hear people tell me that I was somebody that they watched early on, because I don't feel like I've been doing it that long, but apparently I've been in the space a little while. But as I said before, man, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. You're doing so many videos. You're grinding. You're doing it the right way. You're seeing growth. You've got the right team around you, man. So I guarantee you guys will be successful. So just keep doing your thing.
Nate, man, it's been incredible. Like I said, I'm not bullshitting when I said this was one of the highlights of my entire year right here. Thank you for so much for coming on. And, I don't want to date you or make you feel like you're old or you've been doing it forever, but I think it's just the amount of your content that I've consumed over my Dynasty career, listening to all the podcasts and everything that you've done, watching your videos, your growth from where you started to where you are now has been incredible, and I'm so glad to be there, at the start and get to see it. It's not like you were bad before, but the level that you're on now is something that Adam and I strive for every single day. So you are one of the pillars on how we built our show, how we think, how we process, how we look at players, how we analyze players, and definitely the comedy you just overfills. Like, I've never been on the end of a Nate Liss rant before, but this is fucking fantastic. This is fucking amazing. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, man.
I always think of that Ryan Tannehill video he had back in like the summer when he was talking about Malik Willis and all this stuff, and it was funny then, and then it came to fruition. So yeah, man, love your content. For me, like when I really started getting into Dynasty and pushing into that, I remember, you know, like watching your and Matt Kelly stuff, and the back and forth you guys had was awesome. I think that's one thing, like Mike and I often, we think so damn alike that we don't have enough of that like jabbing back and forth. We're trying to create that, but yeah, man, really good having you on. Appreciate you chopping it up with us and talking Dynasty trades. And I love the fact that T-Rock threw in one to dunk on Mike before we finish out, because we dunked on my setup and the storage fuck up and all that, but Mike just throwing caution to the wind. If he didn't win that title, oof.
You got the W though, man. That's all that matters until next year. You got to live with that trade. So
that's it. For those of you out there watching, that have stuck around this long, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you're checking out everything Nate does. I mean, this is a guy who needs no introduction, right? Just the face, and you go, I know who that is. One of the best in the entire space. So check it out. If you guys love the trade show, do us a big favor. Go down, hit the subscribe button. It's pretty easy to do, but it helps the channel out so much. We're getting close to 1,000. Close to 1,000. And 1,000, of course, you know, if you watched any of the previous videos, I got some sick-ass signed autographed jerseys to give away as celebration, because you guys are incredible. Adam, that's all I got, though, man. Make sure the people are coming back same time, same place next week.
We're out of this thing. Peace.